Hello and welcome back to another Rush Duel Links video. Today we're doing a deck profile and we're taking a look at another Red Eyes Black Dragon list. This one is Red Eyes Warriors, specifically a 40 card variant. So first off, let's talk about the skill, Black Dragon Rising. So this skill can be used if you have at least 7 level 5 or higher monsters in your deck, can be activated on turn 2 onward by returning 1 card from your hand to the deck. You can reveal 1 Red Dragon's Chick from your hand, add 1 Red Eyes Black Dragon from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Then you can decrease the attack of one face-up monster on your opponent's field by 400 to the end of the turn. Your level 7 effect monsters cannot attack this turn. So there's a lot going on in this skill. First off, we have to be running a lot of high level monsters. So the 2 options you basically have is run 7 2 tribute monsters or run some number of 1 tribute and 2 tribute monsters to get to that same 7. Now, one of those cards does have to be the Red Eyes Black Dragon itself, or will be Red Eyes Black Dragon, which means you have 6 slots to fill. So what we've done in this deck is we're running both of the high level Gakuto warriors, being Yami Ruler and Kime Ruler, giving us our magic number 7. So next up, we have to be running our 3 Black Dragon Chick, so that is immediately another 3 spots taken up, which is 10 cards of the deck immediately used, because we want to see our Black Dragon Chick as often as possible, because that turns our skill on. That lets us search Red Eyes from the deck or get it back from the graveyard, which is really good. Then we can decrease the monster's attack by 400. Again, that's very, very relevant because 400 just so happens to be the same number of attack that is lost from the barrier, which means we can effectively stop the barrier from working. So it's pretty good, as well as just being able to attack over monsters can be really, really important. And your level 7 effect monsters cannot attack this turn. And importantly, this deck doesn't play any level 7 effect monsters because all of our effect monsters are level 8, which is really, really good. So the next kind of obvious question is, why are we playing 40 cards? The reason for that is that we are already playing a ton of high level monsters, right? We have 7 2 tribute monsters in the deck. That is quite a lot. That is actually the usual amount that people would play in 40 card decks in modern Rush games. So we decided we'd go up to that 40 card because, again, this deck likes to play a lot of back row. Warriors in general have their own combat track in Dark Ruler's Battle Slash, as well as the fact that they're all very well statted, which means they can gain maximum benefit from both Phantom Bind and the Barrier. Obviously, Widespread Ruin is fantastic in just every deck. That does mean there is a lot of back row that you can use with this deck. So we decided to go with 10 Spell Traps and these 7 monsters, which is roughly what you'd see in a modern Rush deck. Now, some Rush decks will run more spell traps than this. That's completely fine, but we don't have access to a lot of our consistency tools that you would have in the modern Rush game, things like Trade-In and things like Ship of the 7 Treasures. So because of that, we've decided to go with only the 10 spell traps. So what does this deck do? Now, everyone's probably played against Yami Ruler. People have probably played with Yami Ruler before, but it's still a very, very good card. Obviously very, very well statted with 2500, 2500. During the turn, you normally summon this card, change its battle position until the end of your opponent's next turn. While this card is face up, neither player can summon level 7 or higher monsters. So again, can be very, very annoying. Now, unfortunately, Yami Ruler is very outable. The Ancient Forces deck is very good at outing this card by just simply summoning one of their level 6 dragons, boosting its attack by 1000, attacking over it. That's where our back row comes in though and can protect our Yami Ruler. Any kind of spellcaster variant can use Seven's Road Witch effect to bypass the Yami Ruler lock. And the Dragonic Resonance deck can use their Dragonic Pressure to just wipe the Yami Ruler off the field and again, ignore its lock. So there are a lot of ways to play around this, but it's still a very good card. The other boss monster of the deck is Kime Ruler the Dark Raider. Now, this effect doesn't get used very often in this because we're not playing Dark Art of Celerity to force all our opponent's monsters into defense mode, but it does come up sometimes. More often than not, though, this is in here just to be a 2500 vanilla, and that is all it needs to do. Next up, we're playing both of our tribute summon engines, that being the Seahorse Carrier, as well as a large quantity of light normal monsters to be able to get back with it, and our Curry Bot to get back more copies of itself. These are both very important because we're playing a lot of high level monsters, so we want to be able to get them out as much as possible. Obviously, Seahorse Carrier is one of the best cards in the game right now. Having no restrictions on it, just being able to easily get back any of your monsters and tribute summon is fantastic. Curry Bot can only get itself, cost 500, and needs to be the only monster you've got, but is still worth using. Next up, we have 3 Piercing Samurai. This is one of the newer cards that we got. If we have 3 face-up monsters on the field, you can send the top card of your deck to the graveyard, choose a warrior-type monster on your field. If it attacks a defense position monster, it inflicts piercing damage. So again, a really good way to get to our opponent's life points. Having an in-engine way to get damage to your opponent is always going to be very important, whether that's multi-attack, whether that's popping your opponent's monsters, or whether that is piercing. And this deck decides to go with piercing. Next up, we're on 2 copies of Thunder the Thunder. This can be useful to get kind of cards out of our hand. Sometimes we'll be kind of bricking on Yami Ruler and Kimi Ruler or the Red Eyes Black Dragon, and just being able to get it out of our hand is really good. The 300 reduction is still pretty good, and a 1300 body is not bad. Then we have the 3 Black Dragons Chick, which is obviously mandatory for the deck. Sometimes it is better to hold onto this card and not use it after we've used our skill. So we can use our skill, reveal Black Dragon's Chick, maybe shuffle a card away, get back our Red Eyes Black Dragon, but then hard tribute out the Red Eyes Black Dragon and actually hold the Chick, because that way we can use the skill again next turn if Red Eyes makes his way into the graveyard. And that is one of the better ways to play this card if you can. Now, there will be situations where you just will not have that luxury, but sometimes that will be the correct decision. But otherwise, we can just slap this down, sack it off, and immediately cheat out our Red Eyes Black Dragon, which is always going to be a fantastic play. And because of that, that also means we could summon out a Yami Ruler and a Kimi Ruler, then summon out the Black Dragon's Chick, use its effect and get out Red Eyes Black Dragon, and have 3 high-level monsters on the field, which is really good. Then we have our aforementioned Aqua Suite, and then we come to our Spell Traps. Monster Reincarnation, fantastic card. We can use this to take back our Black Dragon's Chick, which turns on our skill. We can use it to take back Thunder the Thunder occasionally if we feel like we need to. We can use it to get back Piercing Samurai if our opponent is going on the defensive. We can get back any of our boss monsters if we want to lock our opponent again, or if we want to be able to attack them directly. We can use it to get back Seahorse Carrier, or in some a lot rarer situations, our Currybot, so that we have extra tribute fodder. Because again, if we use our Monster Reincarnation, we could discard one of our trap cards, then we can take back Seahorse Carrier, use Seahorse Carrier effect to get back a light aqua monster, at which point we have turned 2 non-monster cards into 2 monster cards, which is utterly fantastic for being able to make the plays that we otherwise couldn't because of bricking. Next up, Widespread Ruin. Best card in the game, decides games. Games are entirely won and lost off this card. It is just completely bonkers. Every deck should use it. No excuse not to. Then Dark Ruler's Battle Slash is amazing. Again, this card only really works in Warriors, but when an opponent's monster declares an attack targeting your face-up Warrior-type monster, the attacking monster loses 400. Again, 400 is not great. You'd kind of rather it was 500, but 400 will get the job done. And if you have a face-up level 8 or higher Warrior monster on your field, you could also destroy a spell trap on your opponent's field. So there will be some situations where you cannot use this card to protect your monster, but it is still worth using to effectively change it into a Mystical Space Typhoon to just pop one of your opponent's back row, so you can try and snipe something like their Widespread Ruin, ready for your counter attack on the following turn. So still very, very powerful battle trap. Phantom Bind, again, really, really good, especially because we are mostly at 2500 attack boss monsters. That means even if our Phantom Bind only reduces by 100, it's still going to, a lot of the time, kill the opponent's monster, which is really, really good for us. And then finally, the Barrier. We're only playing 2 copies of the Barrier because we already have so many other battle traps, and Phantom Bind in the right matchup completely just shuts decks down and can really just win you the game. And Battle Slash, having that MST effect, is also really, really powerful. That's why we're only on the 2. But you can also use the Barrier to shuffle copies of Black Dragon's Chick back into the deck, or you can put your Seahorse Carriers back into the deck, which is really, really good. So this deck is kind of slow. It plays the control game. I mean, it is still Warriors, so it's quite happy to. And a lot of the time, some decks struggle to deal with Yami Ruler in defense mode. A lot of decks do not include ways to deal with 2500 defense. Now, some of them will, right? Things like Dragonic Resonance, things like Ancient Forces, Spellcaster decks, those will all come with a suite of ways to boost their monster's attack to get over this. But in the mirror matches, for example, a lot of people do not have good ways to deal with the Yami Ruler defense mode, and the Aqua Aggro deck usually entirely relies on their Prima Gitana. So because of that, this deck can stall out opponents quite a lot, which is another good reason to be on 40 cards. So for consistency reasons, we're on 40, as well as for the deck out situation where you will just be able to pass, and be able to win the game through that, which does come up more often than you might think. Overall, the Red Eyes variant of this deck I do find to be a little bit more consistent than pure Warriors. I have found, though, that this deck does sometimes still brick, which is, again, why we did go up to 40 cards in the first place, but it will still brick nonetheless. That's just a part of Rush, though, until we get some more consistency cards, better ways to empty our hand and replace those cards. this is just going to be a thing in Rush. But this deck is still very, very strong. It can take games off of literally any deck. It does have some worse matchups than others, but can still beat any other deck. So let's fire in some replays so I can show you what I've been talking about